be ground driven, so it would move on its own power. But more typically were ones like this. This stationary engine, as it's called, you know, it was mobile, but it took horses to move it, is the exact engine that Henry Ford worked on when he was 19 years old. Right here in what was then called Springwells. And he called out, he didn't own the engine, but he knew how to run it inside and out, and he was hired every time it was hired out, he was hired out too to operate it. So again, a very typical example of a small steam engine from the early 1880s that would have been used to run sawmills, to do threshing machines, a whole sort of different kind of work on the farm.
Now, how dangerous were these things?
They're terribly dangerous. One thing about a steam engine, you can't stall a steam engine. It just goes very slow until it gets past the inertia point. So, you know, getting something caught in there is not going to be a good thing because it'll pretty much rip your arm off. Or we had an unfortunate incident here back about 20-some years ago. We had an elderly engineer that was working on one of our engines, and he stumbled and got to be whatever, but the engine popped his head off. And that was you know, very common, you know, before the safety kind of things and whatever in the 19th century, and especially with farm laborers. You read these very distressing stories, especially of younger children or boys who are working on the rig, you know, getting severely injured, falling into the threshing machine and actually going through it and coming out the other end and living for a short time. But, you know, it was a dangerous business, especially with this blade-operated machinery. And you see, you know, everywhere. So that's one thing, you know, people need to think in mind. Also, these threshing machines were very dangerous in the fact that you have all this dry straw and huge piles all around you. They typically burn wood. Wood throws out a lot of embers, and it was not uncommon for these things to pop an ember just in the wrong way and set fire to everything, and it burns up in an instant. So most of the time things worked, and most of the time it was a good outcome, but you read these disturbing situations about bad things that happen. All right, that was the quick tour. Anybody have any questions or anything particular? Yes?
Miniatures that were salesman samples?
Yes, or sometimes there are patent models where they need to supply you know, something that was dead on, but in a version that could be sent around. And, you know, because patent infringements and sort of patent things were a big deal through the 19th century. And every time somebody would do something new, of course it would have to be patented.
Yes.
So the Fordson?
Oh, the Fordson. We've got an early example over here. We'll take a look at it.